Hey everyone, how's it going?
Hello.
Keith, did you know if Hendrik was joining? I tried reaching out, but I haven't gotten a response from him.
No, I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, he had a couple PRs up that I figured he may want to talk about, but he's not joining me. We can push them till next meeting. Did you have anything you want to talk about, Keith?
No, I didn't have anything.
Okay. Might be a pretty quick one then. Give it like one more minute here. See if anyone else joins. All right, we could probably go ahead and get started here. Um, so I just have only a couple things for the agenda today. The mostly just looking at the PRs we have in the hub here. Um, Hendrik has put up some uh docs for the API design, some for the kind of language agnostic API that we're coming up with in the hub here so that we can use that in our design docs. But then also he is working on a V3 kind of prototype, which actually maybe I can go ahead and show that if people haven't seen it yet. Um, he was working on a V3, I call this V3 sandbox here. Basically just kind of coming up with or kind of messing around with sort of different ideas of what a V3 could look like. Um, and just kind of playing around with it here. Let me see if I can find uh an example. I thought he had like oh, maybe it's in here. Yeah, sample. Uh a couple samples of kind of what it would look like. It looks still, pretty similar with a couple key differences here and there. But yeah, I mean, if anyone wants to come in and look at this and, possibly contribute ideas or yeah, I mean just start, any sort of discussion around this. Or I also know we have a discussion in here already that a couple people have come and contributed ideas for V3. Um, uh, just any sort of thing, like maybe some API you want to clean up, or some different way of doing something that we already do it in V2. Yeah, just wanna make sure people are aware that this discussion is still here and alive. And yeah, I think at least going into 2026, I think we're gonna kind of start working on this a little bit more. Um, I think or I think goals for 2026 are still being thought of, but I think we at least want to do like a POC for this by the end of the year next year. But obviously, if goals change, we'll, talk about that here and let everyone know. But yeah, just wanted to make sure everyone's still aware of that. Um, yeah, so a couple PRs. Actually,
Hey,
oh, geez,
Robert,
go ahead. Yeah.
I wondered, could you maybe explain? I mean, I've heard Hendrik talk about it, but in your mind, what's the benefits of this V3 API for SDK development or for the community?
Yeah, so I think uh as we were kind of going along with coming up with new features and implementing new hips and stuff for V2, I think just as we were kind of going along with that development, there were just things we noticed here and there that could be cleaned up and maybe a bit more straightforward in how we do them. On top of, getting rid of everything that we have deprecated that people might be using. So that'll be nice to kind of just start fresh and clean there. But yeah, I think just general improvements that we found that we couldn't really do in V2 just because there would be like, big API changes, big breaking changes, and obviously we don't want to do that. But yeah, so Hendrik and I have had discussions, and maybe I can go ahead and make a post in this V3 discussion here, kind of more about what we talked about. But yeah, I mean just kind of in general, cleaning up of our APIs and making them more user friendly and like more straightforward. Um, yeah.
But does this mean we have to go back and do it for all previous? Is this go forward or is this changing everything?
So no, it wouldn't be like changing everything. I think in general the user flow would remain the same. Um, uh, but yeah, at least in terms of like whenever we do kind of come out with this V3, we're not just gonna do like a full on like cut over from V2 to V3. Like there's gonna be a time where we have to support both. Um, and kind of just, gradually sort of uh, push and advertise V3. But again, that probably won't be for at least like another year. Like we're still in the very early stages of this. So that kind of answer your question.
I guess so. I think at some point it would be good for us to more clearly articulate what the benefits of V3 are. Because I mean, it sounds like it could be very disruptive. I mean, it's going to be a long project. So just, why are we doing it?
Hmm.
What's wrong with the current process we have, and how does this improve upon it?
Yeah, I think again, it's just more just user clarity. We have public APIs that uh, we have available that are deprecated and we don't want people to use. So, kind of clean the slate there is always a good thing. And yeah, I think just at least something, I've noticed kind of with how our APIs are designed, like there's a lot of room, I feel like, for users to like, for example, like you have a transaction, you can freeze it. But the user can still then try and set fields afterwards after a transaction is frozen. So it kind of I feel like a better API design there would be to basically not allow that because not allow that in the sense of like just the API itself doesn't allow it. Like in V2, it's not allowed in the sense of like if you try to do it, it'll just like throw an error on you. But I think if we just kind of look at design of the API, that we could design it in a way where that wouldn't even be possible. Like a user could try to do it and just like wouldn't build or something. Um, so just, kind of things like that where, it's just really a good time for us to like look at our API design and try to come up with better ways to do it or more straightforward ways to do it to kind of uh, prevent those sort of issues for users, if that makes sense. Yeah, you're definitely right. Yeah, it will, be a good effort. I think again, like I don't think we're gonna be trying to look to change to make any like super drastic changes. Like I think in general, like, you know, just trying to do like an account create, for example, like that'll still look, relatively similar, maybe just an API or two or have different names or something. But yeah, that's all gonna be up for discussion. We're gonna try and do that, in the open as much as we can. Um, yeah. Okay. Um, yeah, so Hendrick, yeah, he had a couple PRs open for that V3 prototype. He also had one. We're still figuring out some stuff for our API guidelines here. Um, it's actually for those who didn't see it, was it guides maybe? Yeah, here we go. Yeah, so Hendrick came up with this kind of design doc guideline here. So basically, we had noticed with our design docs, they weren't maybe as consistent as maybe we should have them with kind of how we were defining new APIs or updated APIs that, for example, like hips would try and change or implement. So we came up with this kind of guideline here as to how what we want that syntax to look like, um, just so we can keep it consistent between our design docs. So, people can look at two design docs and they'll, look relatively the same and are easy to follow. Um, but yeah, so that comes includes coming up with this sort of language agnostic interface here. So this defines the way that in our design docs we're going to specify, different types and different APIs we want to define here. Um, so yeah, we have our types here and enumerations and just basically any sort of other attributes that might want to be applied to certain fields. So if, for example, we have a field that's optional, then, they would have this at optional annotation here. Um, and obviously we have others here as well. But yeah, so this document was merged maybe only like a couple of weeks ago to yeah, just kind of give more consistent structure to what our design docs will look like. Um, this combined with we do have another SDK design doc template too, which more so defines the structure. But when it comes to what the APIs look like, that's what this guideline will be good for. Um, and actually, maybe it'd be good to go back and update this to reference that API guideline as well. I'll make a note to do that. But yeah, were there any, questions on this from anyone? Again, I think it was just merged like a couple weeks ago. I don't know who's had a chance to take a look at this. Uh, but yeah, this is kind of what we're gonna want our design docs to follow going forward. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, so this PR he put up is just adding a couple more kind of expanding on this guideline a little bit. We had a couple comments on that original PR that actually um uh there's a couple comments on that PR that we wanted to address at some point, but we just wanted to get the guideline in initially. So this PR kind of comes back and addresses those. So I think the main things he was addressing here were a couple more specifications and annotations on what methods or like for methods here. So I think these couple he added describe um, error types. So if a method's supposed to throw an error, there's just a couple more specifications he adds there. Um, m More annotations here for some non-basic types. So like if we're defining like a structure or a class or something, this will they'll go under this type annotations heading here. I think we only have this one defined at the moment. So this is a one of annotations, basically saying if we have multiple fields that could be set, but only one of them is allowed to be set. That's what this annotation kind of specifies here. So that would be, let me think of an example here. Um, so when you're creating an account, for example, you can at account creation, you can decide to stake that account to a particular node, or a particular account ID. Um, but you can't do both. So it has to be one or the other. So that's when this one of annotation here would be useful. Um, and then I think the last thing here it talks about is inheritance. So if we're defining another API that inherits from another existing API, or just the term we use is extends here. So that could be um, let me think of one here. I mean, just like any like transaction we have, we have our base transaction object, and then if we were to get, define another transaction in a HIP, then we would put here just like new transaction extends transaction, and then any other definitions or types, APIs, whatever that we would want to put there. Yeah, that'd be defined that way. Um, oh, and then a couple naming conventions here as well. Yeah, just it's more just, trying to keep things consistent. But having it all defined in a doc somewhere is good. Any questions on any of that? Anything with our kind of API guidelines here? Okay. Um, yeah, so there's also new HIP 1313 here. This one looks pretty simple. Actually, Flacco, did you maybe want to go over this really quick? I know it's pretty simple.
Yeah, sorry guys, my internet was a little bit slow. Uh, so yeah, this is the design proposal for the high volume entities, and it's pretty straightforward actually. We only have one Boolean flag in the parent transaction that enables this functionality. And uh, I actually didn't. I wasn't sure if we want to add that to every transaction that we have, because in the HIP it states that it can be done for, I believe, around 10 transactions. But I guess it would be better to have this for every type of transaction, um, just have it. It would be easier for us basically. And if the user tries to set it on a transaction that's not supported, the SDK can have a check for that and and throw an error before actually trying to execute it. And yeah, for the test plan, the only thing that we actually discussed that was to see how we can hit the throttle, and maybe we would need another job for that in order to set up the consensus nodes with low throttles, because it's not deterministic, and we might need a separate setup for that. But yeah, when the services team has some progress on implementing that, I'll see if we have some workaround to do it without changing the configs. Um, but yeah, I would argue if that's something that the SDK wants to actually test, but if we can't do it, we can go ahead and do it. But yeah,
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I remember that discussion now. We were talking about coming up with a different like workflow to see if we could do that. Yeah, that'll be interesting because it's maybe we can talk to our performance team about that. See if like they have any sort of insights into maybe uh how we would test that or kind of like the best way to do it. Um, because I remember you making a comment about it could be flaky. Just if
yeah, because some throttles depend on transactions per second. Other throttles might depend on, for example, CPU or memory utilization. And these are things that we cannot directly control most of the time. So uh, our tests would become flaky, which is not something that we want. And
Mhm.
I know that the services project in their code base, they can directly manipulate these throttles via they're like overriding the throttles themselves or changing the configs. So it's quite easy for them to have these type of tests. But for us, it's quite troublesome. And yeah, maybe we need to see how we can do that.
Yeah. Yeah, ideally we wouldn't want to have a custom build of consensus node ourselves because that would be really, really annoying to maintain and update. Um, but we can probably come back to this when they make more progress on it, like you were saying. I think I do like yeah, keeping this at the transaction level as opposed to um like a derived transaction or yeah, only having it well keeping it yeah as part of the transaction API, but then um any transaction that it might not be implemented for, we can just like override this and just like throw an error or something.
Yeah, because I remember when we needed to implement the uh, custom field limit, if you remember, then the custom field limit was limited to only topic message submit, I
Mhm.
believe. So only one transaction out of 55 or something could utilize this functionality, and then it made sense to not expose it for every transaction because uh, we have only one out of 55. But
Mhm.
right now, most of the most used transactions support this high volume Boolean flag. And it makes sense because if you have high volume, that means this transaction is used quite often. So it makes more sense to have it as a global setter. So uh,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, I 100% agree. Yeah, and then, if they decide to enable more transactions at some point, then it would just be easy for us to just erase that um, overridden function like at that for that specific transaction.
yeah.
And that would pretty much just enable it. Yeah, no, I like that. That sounds good. Um,
And I think that's pretty much it. There's not a lot of new stuff in that hip. It's pretty straightforward. The only thing
mhm.
to keep in mind is the testing,
Yeah.
but we'll see.
Yep. Yeah, I think Simi still said that's gonna be like uh still a release or two away. Is that right, Keith? For HIP 1313.
Yeah, there's still a couple releases away.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll have plenty of time to figure that out. Um, that's pretty much all I had. Did you guys have anything you wanted to go over? Any other topics to discuss?
Me personally, no.
Okay. Keith, any last minute things from you?
No, nothing for me.
All right, cool. I think I'll go ahead and call it here. Thanks for joining, guys. Talk
Thank
to
you.
you. Talk to you this week. Bye.